Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yes, it's Daryl from Dixon. I just want to say, if we're going to continue to roll with Deshaun Watson, it's my opinion that we need to take him, put him on a pitch count, treat him like he's a rookie quarterback, simplify his reads, and really slow it down until he gets back up to speed. I really do believe that lack of playing has a great deal to do with his performance. I do believe there's still talent there, but he doesn't need to be throwing the ball 50 times a game. We're going to have to establish the run. The O-line is going to have to do better, but he can't be everything. We've got to really treat him like a rookie. You have to. He's just been away so long.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Browns on SI. Spencer, it's an interesting thing. You got to find what he does well in this offense, what you think he does well, and then play to it. I know it wasn't good. What do you do? I mean, you've got a lot sunk into this, and it isn't going to be, well, we're going to move off him, and I don't think it's going to be, well, we got to move off him in 2 weeks.
No, and the pitch count idea is like an interesting thought. I mean, fans are so used to seeing this team run the football and Nick Chubb sort of be the focal point, and to know they're going away from that, I think doesn't probably sit well with everybody. And so I understand. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, what does he do well? They need to identify that, and they need to play to his strengths to get him more comfortable. And that was supposed to be the whole point of bringing in Ken Dorsey. It was supposed to be you bring him in. He knows how to placate to these types of quarterbacks. He's done it before with Cam Newton, with Josh Allen, and he's going to kind of bring this new wrinkle to the offense that unlocks his game. And I want to be clear, like, there's still time for that. I do think it's easy for fans to get caught up in week one, first football we've seen in months, and feel like it's the end-all be-all. So I'm willing to give him some time. This was the first time the offense was out there taking reps together really as a whole, some of their parts, because they didn't do it in the preseason. First time the offensive line had a chance to play together, and we know communication is so important with that group in particular, and they had some struggles. So I'm willing to give it some time to breathe here and let the offense kind of figure itself out as they get into this new system that they're running for Deshaun. But it was obviously not a great debut, and there are a lot of questions about, if there's anything, if they can even pull anything out of this player that is Deshaun Watson, and if they can get him back to playing at a high level like we saw in Houston.
Again, I had no idea. I watched it, and it was like, well, now they're trying to run what they ran under center with the play action, and then it was like, well, here now it's more of a and I'm one of these guys that when people say they're multiple and they've said we're going to be multiple, I'm going, oh, multiple to me means we don't do anything really, really well, so we're going to try to do a bunch of stuff till we find out. And again, I know it's a personal bias, but anytime I hear somebody say we're multiple, I kind of go, ooh.
I love that point by you, Dave, because it's fair to feel like if you're saying you do a lot of things, you don't have really an identity of like one thing that you at least know you can bank on or do well when you really need it. And I do find that fascinating. And I think that was one of the more confusing things about this offense week one. We understood it was going to be a mix of Kevin Stefanski's ideas and Ken Dorsey's ideas, but it was so like convoluted. You didn't feel like there was any sort of like rhythm or rhyme or reason to why they were doing certain things in certain spots. And it was just very disjointed. And I wonder if that's throwing things off, if that's making it harder to adjust, because some guys, you're doing stuff like you did last year, and versus trying to do these new things that are better catered for Deshaun. I was perplexed by the fact that we saw during training camp a lot of motion from this offense. They've clearly put an emphasis on that. That was part of bringing Ken Dorsey in, was getting these advantageous situations to understand, like, are they playing man, are they playing zone? How are we going to move guys around? And the Browns were one of the lowest teams, one of the lowest usage teams in terms of motion in week one across the NFL. So that's problematic. I don't know where that kind of disappeared to, because they've sort of been showing that as a staple of this offense. And then it just wasn't there on Sunday. So that was perplexing to me. They are in a dilemma. And I do think a lot of this, I don't want to make this about, they should have kept Joe Flacco, because I do think Joe Flacco had flaws, and we saw those kind of come to a head in the playoffs. But I do think one of the biggest indictments on Deshaun to this point is that Joe Flacco came in last year off the couch and ran Kevin Stefanski's offense the way that Kevin Stefanski's offense is meant to be run. And people have now seen him run that system effectively. And the fact that they're catering an offense to Deshaun's skill set and it's not the same offense, the questions of like why these two got paired together come to mind. Why would you bring in a quarterback that can't run your system? And you saw Flacco do it at least competently. That it's that's not going to go away. People are going to remember what that looked like. And meanwhile, you're bending over backwards for Deshaun, and it still isn't working. So, again, we'll give it some time to see how it sort of plays out these next couple weeks. It was a 1 game sample size. I'm willing to understand that things can be different 1 week to another, but there are a lot more questions than answers at this point for what this new look offense is going to be. And I understand why it has fans a little bit nervous moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm a guy that poo-pooed the Flacco thing. When you put it in those terms, I can't argue with that. I really can't.
And to be clear, like I'm not saying bring him back.
No, no,
I
no, 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 no,
understood.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
I understand why
when
there's issues there.
when you frame it
Well,
as
yeah.
he ran this offense, and that's a valid point. People who watch the show know I'm like, yeah, I understand why they moved on from Joe Flacco, threw a ton of
Right.
interceptions. As you were talking through that, the most concerning thing that I saw, Deshaun Watson did not have the answers to what the defense was doing. That is a huge
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah, and I also think to extend that a little bit, I think one of the biggest things, and it's been a problem, I think the last couple of years with Deshaun, is he just looks right now like he's slow to process things. The plays where he did have time, and you can go back and watch this if you have the All-22 or you have NFL Plus or whatever, people out there watching, you can go back and you see a guy who, when somebody was coming open, he wouldn't see it. Like he would have time in the pocket and he just wouldn't see the guys coming open at the right times. I don't think he's reading the defense well. And that's maybe the biggest problem for him moving forward is like if he can't get through that, if he can't read defenses, if he's slow to process, I don't know that he just fixes that in an instant and if that's going to get better. And so that will continue to be a problem and I think that will show itself out or play itself out here in the coming weeks and we'll just have to see if it does or it doesn't, but yeah, like that's one of the bigger concerning things to me.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant by he didn't have the answers to what the
Yeah.
defense was showing him, and that I'm with you. That is definitely concerning.